Let me turn my attention to another subject which I'm sure has been bothering all of us for the last few days. It has come to the attention of so many people because of social media messages talking about children who are in distress because of one or both of their parents succumbing to COVID-19. They have been posted in the guise of asking for help or adoption procedures for some children. And after this, the union government, the Ministry of Child and Women Welfare, has come out and said very clearly that you cannot adopt children on social media. Having said so, the fact is that many kids are in distress right now, and we need to find out what we can do to help. To speak on this, I'm joined today by Anurag Kundu, who's the chairperson for the Delhi Commission for Protection of Child Rights. I'm speaking today with Sudarshan Suchi, who's CEO of Save the Children, and Bharti Ali, who is co-founder and ED of Haq Center for Child Rights. Welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us today. Mr. Kundu, let me begin by just getting your perspective of how large the problem is. When you see what is happening on ground, are we really seeing a fair number of instances of children in distress, left abandoned because their caregivers have succumbed to COVID-19 or are seriously ill, getting medical attention?
Short answer is yes. And I'm very sincerely saying that it's akin to national emergency. Let's look at numbers. Roughly 2.5 lakh people have documented ones have passed away because of COVID-19. Now, if we simply segregate these their age groups and look at just the people who are, let's say, below 50, 55, and say these are the people who are likely to leave children less than 18 years behind, we will see I have not known a smaller time frame than the last 30 days wherein so many children have lost parents in nearly no time. So it is akin to a national emergency, and not only is it being reflected in people reaching out to us for help, it is reflected in how the social media is both coming forward to help these children and also creating another concern of adoption outside the regulatory framework.
So, Mr. Kundu, what kind of situations have you been faced with so far? Because one would imagine the way Indian society is, large Indian families are, even if there is an unfortunate situation where a child has lost both her parents due to COVID-19, there would be relatives and people in the wider family to come forward. Is that not happening?
So in cases where both the parents are being lost to COVID, the relatives are coming forward. In nearly 80 to 90% instances, relatives have come forward to help the child who has essentially turned orphan. Now, few questions remain. What about the cases where nobody is coming forward? And we have come across few cases where nobody is coming forward. Relatives are happy assisting and supporting and perhaps even partly sponsoring. But raising a child takes much more than that. So that's one. Two, the relatives are coming forward, but because of various livelihood loss and socioeconomic disasters that the COVID-19 pandemic has become, their ability to raise another child has also come into question, while the enthusiasm and intent may be there.
Sudarshan Suchi, can you take us through what is the kind of pain that these children are facing? Is it always a situation where they have lost both their parents, or in one case lost the parent who is the breadwinner? What are the kind of perils that kids are facing due to COVID-19?
Before I come to that specific, let me fully agree with Anurag what he was saying, the enormity of it or emergency. It's a no-brainer. And in any calamity or pandemic, the most vulnerable are the ones who get hit first. In this case, it's a double whammy. The most vulnerable are the marginal communities at the border of poverty, and within them, the children in added weakness. So definitely, I think the only part is that this pandemic, unlike other places, we don't have access readily to data. I mean, the social context built up, the movement and others. So one has to just estimate and imagine. Every day we come across such illustrations of many situations where either one parent has died or both have got COVID. Now, what we are talking about is not just getting COVID and dying and expiring, but also under what conditions, in which environment. So if you have in urban slums such children, we are talking about, I'm recalling an instance from Kolkata recently, where two kids, I mean, the parents, a family of six staying in a 6x4 kind of room where the parents got COVID. One parent managed a bed, the other one had to be in home isolation quarantine, whatever that could mean in that little place. Shared bathroom, shared room, shared all kind of spaces. And then in the fear psychosis that's prevailing around, in the same communities which were otherwise resilient and always coming together, this time people distanced themselves. In fact, if anything, reacted very adversely, where these kids particularly got the worst of it. They were neither here nor there, neither capable of taking care of their parents nor taking care of themselves. And with loss of income, they got hit by food, nutrition, and basic access. And worst of all, within that circumstance, eventually they also got infected. So yes, I'm just giving you one illustration, but one could go on and on similarly of a whole set of people at the poverty line, the most vulnerable, for whom each of these things is one more load on the already existing life crisis, on an existential brink where they are.
Okay, so let's come to Bharti Ali, let's come to what can be done. So now we know pretty clearly that if you see a message on WhatsApp or any social media saying that a child is in need and needs to be adopted, don't fall for it. It's actually illegal to talk about this on social media. There's a whole process. Can you take us through what the process is, and also give us perspective if that process, which is very important to safeguard children, is apt for the current situation when you have a much larger number of children in distress because of the COVID-19 pandemic?
True, there is a process, and it's also important that the process is followed. It may be time consuming, but at the end of the day, what you ensure through the process is that the child, when he or she goes into an adoptive family, gets all the rights like that of a biological child, and that is more important. So let's not spend time on how much time it takes to finally get a child in adoption through the legal process. Let's concentrate on the outcome, which is about securing the rights of the child. So having said that, in a situation like this, if there are children who have nobody to look after them, then only those children should be considered for adoption. And the child welfare committees actually have to first declare the child free for adoption, legally free for adoption. So they conduct their own investigation and inquiry into the circumstances of the child, whether there are relatives to look after the child, or and to what extent are they willing to look after the child. How will we ensure that if the relatives are looking after the child, they will be able to also secure the child's rights and are not really actually going to deprive the child of probably the property that the child owns. Those are the aspects that child welfare committees are supposed to look into, and then decide in the best interest of the child what is the most appropriate way of securing and providing a secure and loving and caring family to the child. That could be the relatives. It could be another family where the child gets adopted. So once the child welfare committee declares the child legally free for adoption, meanwhile the specialized adoption agency will actually try and conduct its own investigation. Those who want to adopt have to register at the Carings web portal of the Government of India. It's part of the CARA's website. Once you register on the Carings web portal, then the specialized adoption agency automatically will get in touch with you and will carry out their necessary investigation and do the paperwork. They will do matching. They will look at your medical reports, the child's medical reports, match the two, and accordingly present their report to the Child Welfare Committee. Looking at all these documents, the committee will declare the child legally free for adoption. And after that, the SAA, the Specialized Adoption Agency, will file an application in the court. So the court actually finalizes the adoption, not the Child Welfare Committee. That's the legal process. But in circumstances like this, as you asked, I think it's important that A, we concentrate on community rehabilitation programs, kinship care, foster care, especially for older children. And I say that because older children do have issues, adjustment issues. It's not easy, for them to be adjusting in a new family, in an alien environment, whereas with relatives, they would probably be more, easy to adjust. And Juvenile Justice Act allows relative adoption. So this is something that everybody should know, that, irrespective of what religion you follow, you can still be adopted under the Juvenile Justice. You can adopt someone who's related to you under the Juvenile Justice Act. The only caveat is that the relative has to be either a maternal or paternal grandparent or a maternal or paternal aunt. So that's about the law.
Yeah. Anurag, tell me now about what people can do. People want to come forward and help, and there may be different circumstances. It might not necessarily be only adoptive parents who need to come forward, because, there might be a lesser proportion of children who need that kind of help. What are the range of things people can do, and where can they reach out?
Tamanna, people can do a lot of things, but before I answer that question, I want to go back to what Sudarshan earlier hinted and then come back to your point of the availability of data. And this is more of what we, the policymakers, can do, ought to be doing, and what you from media and engaged citizens can demand your governments to do. 250,000 people documentedly dead. They have left a family behind. The governments already have a database of these people who have died because of COVID. The model that we will set up a helpline and then wait for people to reach out to us in SOS situation, in distress, extreme distress situation, is inherently a flawed model. When the governments have the database and the addresses and the phone numbers of those who have passed away because they were once tested, then it is the government's job to actively and promptly reach out to these families, evaluate what their specifically needs are. It could be medical, financial, emotional, social, educational, and then intervene in a timely fashion. And that is what governments are by and large not doing, and which is what is essentially turning into a national emergency, leaving the enthusiastic citizens outside the government to do a lot more. And the citizens, while can do a lot, I think I would rather just focus on two things. If you come across any child in distress, it could be because of parental loss or otherwise, please report to the authorities. There is a dedicated child line 1098 number for it, or you can just simply ring up your nearest police station or the police number, and then they can take over the rest of the proceedings. So reporting is the, I think, most fundamental and the best thing a citizen can do. That's one. Two, the Juvenile Justice Act allows for sponsorship provisions wherein interested citizens can sponsor the education and the well-being and the upbringing of children who have been abandoned, distressed, sexually violated, and all other kinds of trauma that the children often go through because of various circumstances. So the Juvenile Justice Act allows for the sponsorship provision, and that's another area where the citizens can come forward. This will vary from state to state, specific rules, but there is a provision in the law that allows citizens to engage.
Another point is that what can we do to make sure that children are safe once you call this helpline? Let me come to Sudarshan with this question. So it's been now advertised and it has been communicated quite widely that if you know of a child who's in distress, don't go around putting the details on social media, etc. You call 1098 and then things get taken care of from there on. But what really happens? Is the government infrastructure robust enough to ensure that these children are well cared of in that temporary facility? Where do they go? Do they have everything that they need at that point? And is that somewhere where citizens can pitch in, Sudarshan?
Yeah. First of all, let me say Save the Children as an organization, we believe in working and aligning with the system, with the government's state or central, and getting those systems to be more robust and more working and in delivery. This is our larger philosophy. We believe that that's the long-term solution. There is a right for every child to be surviving and to be protected. Now, in terms of systems and all, I think one of the easiest route to take is to suddenly blame the system. No system, howsoever robust, actually eventually estimates every unanticipated context. So this pandemic has caught us all on the wrong foot. What will be good is this threat can be used as an opportunity to have a combination between active citizenship and volunteerism on one end, and strengthening the existing government system, the CWC, the child protection committees, everywhere. And the way to do it is, so far as governments are concerned, I think more resources need to be committed. It needs to be like a state of war for them, state of emergency or war, that every child lost is one, all of us are equally guilty. This is not a hair splitting time. What do we do? You asked us, Tehseen. The basic thing is, the moment anything comes to radar online, we actually, organizations like ours, we are not alone. All of us put together, we are just one modest small drop in the ocean. And what we try to do is engage at all ends, and we be a part of solution by, first of all, reaching the spot directly, making sure that we've got the right information and making sure the right connections are made. That is, bring the information to CWC, get the whole process started. Whether so the whole continuum of child care, from being in natural parents to becoming an adoption or institution, there is a whole set of possibilities, all of which come into play, or any of whichever is the earliest ready response. Kinship, yes, like Bharti ji said, is a desire, and we try to identify, do they exist? But instead of just stopping at kinship, we also make sure that the kins are able to. Because when we are looking at vulnerable children, again, in rural hinterlands and below poverty line, the kins themselves don't have adequate security. They also survive on the brink. So getting these kids to the kins and enabling the kins to walk them through, and then watching over as a system, that holistic approach is what our belief has been. And we've been contributing at every end to, it's not just a question of, so I would differentiate that the public postings, the social media is about an emotion running high to do the right things. I believe that doing right way is equally important and much more. So just otherwise it opens up a Pandora's box for a huge number of possibilities, none of which desirable.
No, absolutely. We have to follow the process. What I'm talking about is the fact that there are such a large number of children in distress, and there is a process and a function, but it is also true that there are a large number of people in this country who want to reach out and help, some of them possibly watching this show, and we need to leave them with practical directions of what they can do. Let me come to Bharti on this as well. Bharti, what can people watching this really do? Should they be donating to causes? Can they, find out how they can help or volunteer in their communities? What is the way forward?
Rajji said, there is provision for sponsorship, and I will really request citizens to come forward and sponsor children, because this is the time when they need it most. And as Sudarshan ji also said, kinship care, yes, is a good way out, but yes, kins do need support. So this is where we can actually roll out a robust sponsorship program throughout the country, and citizens can contribute to it. And I'll also say that child welfare committees are not going to keep every child in an institution. If they find someone who is a fit person, can look after a child till the child finds long-term care, then they can also appoint fit persons and give the custody and care of the child to the fit person. So there are possibilities of various kinds where citizens can come forward. You want to do good, do it the legal way. So you want to approach child welfare committees, go tell them what you want to do, and they'll direct you. There are district child protection units across the country now, and the district child protection units can also guide citizens, as to how they can contribute. There is a juvenile justice fund created in different states. The fund can accept donations from citizens, so that's another way of going about the situation. And I will just reiterate what Anuragji said. Please report. Don't let a child be there without any support. Don't let a child go unnoticed. The follow-ups will only be possible when the child gets noticed by the system. If a child is not noticed by the system, there will be no follow-up. We are already hearing of custody battles, between maternal side and paternal side of a child, especially with boys. I was talking to some lawyers today, and they said, they've already got custody issues coming up where people are fighting for the custody of the boy child. I don't know what's going to happen to the girls in this country. All of us should be really worried about the girl child, given the way we think and look at girls as a burden. So we need to definitely first get an idea of what is the situation on ground. And I think I'm 100% with Anuragji that states have to be a little more proactive in assessing the situation on ground and then planning accordingly. A robust response will only come when you know what really is the problem and the magnitude and the extent of the problem and its various dimensions. So let's collaborate, work jointly with the state governments, with the commissions, with
Yes, absolutely. And especially when it comes to children, the state will have to go out there and proactively find out what's happening with these kids, whether they're fine or not. For all of those who are watching right now, Bharti has enlisted some excellent ways in which you can go and help. You have to get in touch with your local child welfare committee to find out how you can step in and in what fashion. I think the idea of a nationwide sponsorship program is also a fantastic one. Let's do our bit for the kids who have lost out in COVID-19. They are our collective responsibility. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us today.